Duh. Subscribe to the channel. Anastasia left the train station. Her family didn't see her on the weekends. She decided to surprise her and didn't tell her to come. Her mother and sister didn't expect to see her. Nastya asked Uncle Vanya, a neighbor who knew Nastya's mother before her birth, to bring her home so that her relatives wouldn't know. "How is your life in the city?" Ivan tried to start a conversation. "Everything is fine. I'm studying slowly." "What year is it?" "The second year." Anastasia answered in a difficult way. She was tired of talking about studying. It seemed that the older generation had nothing more to ask about. "It's a shame, of course, that your son Yazim didn't come out. You were so smart. You didn't have enough points. Why didn't your mother try to save money for studying?" "Masha doesn't travel abroad anymore. She doesn't need money." Nastya's mood was completely ruined. She couldn't make Ivan keep quiet. Mom brought her up to the house, obedient. But no one allowed him to discuss the problems of her family. For this, the girl didn't like her native village. Their people know everything about each other. You can't hide anything. Nastya arrived late Friday evening to spend almost 2 full days with her family. When Tatiana opened the door, she hardly waved with joy. "Masha, come here, Nastya has arrived." Relying on the cane, Maria came to them. She was the oldest for 2 years, but she had already had a quite hard life. From early childhood, she professionally did artistic gymnastics. She won first in city competitions, then in regional, and then participated in international. Her relatives were very proud of Masha. But 3 years ago, she had to forget about her sports career. An innocent trip with a friend on a motorcycle turned into a tragedy. "Your daughter has a leg puncture. The functions are broken. It is difficult to say at the moment whether she can bend her leg at all." Tatiana, the doctor, explained. "How is that?" "She is an athlete. She has won many times abroad." I looked at him with my eyes wide open. "Oh my God, she will not survive this. What can we do?" "We will do everything possible. It may take several operations to return her full functionality to her limbs." Tatiana could not give her daughter the proper treatment for the salary of a production cleaner. She worked at the factory, and with difficulty managed to raise Masha and Nastya without the help of her husband, who had abandoned them in the first years of marriage. "Masha, my daughter, you can't lie under the blanket all your life." Tatiana was circling around her daughter, trying to talk to her as carefully as possible. She took any advice in her direction aggressively and threw pillows. "What should I do? Jump from happiness? I'm a disabled now, you know? I'm not fit for anything now. Even Grisha left me." The girl cried. But she had to make up with her injury and start making money for life, so that Nastya had a chance for a good education and a future. She was interested in foreign languages since childhood. Even teachers noted this. Only passion for the love of business. I didn't help Nastya to do her homework. I had to learn to be a philologist. She came to us again. She shook Tatiana's head after dinner. "Mom, aren't you glad to see me?" She poked Nastya's lips and Tatiana went down to the couch and took her daughter by the hand. "You're not kept in the city. You come here every week. I want to help you. You two are having a hard time, and Masha is not a gift. Make friends with him. Get to know the guy. Is it forever because of Masha?" She put a cross on her life. "What are you guilty of?" She did not give a word to her mother. She did not want to hurt her old daughter, because she did not know anyone else, fearing another failure. But she did not intend to encourage Nastya's desire to hold back from dating. "Daughter, you are in your best years now. Use them as best you can." Anastasia understood her mother's worries. It was uncomfortable for her to meet boys and tell about her romantic success to the family. Since Masha left her fiancé, she was angry at all men. She was angry at herself and no longer considered herself attractive. "You shouldn't think so about yourself." Nastya often repeated to her older sister, "You were so beautiful," and so she remained. "Your figure is sporty, your posture is gorgeous. Yes, any normal guy will not even notice your weakness." "Of course," Masha replied. "I went through it. I'm not going to expose myself to ridicule anymore and wait for another fan to see me in green." Nastya decided to listen to her mother and began to come home once a month, but she did not forget to call. Now she spent the weekends walking with her neighbors in the dormitory and sometimes alone. Anastasia even managed to find a job in a cafe to make her mother's life easier. Walking around the city turned out to be a costly job, and she could not afford to spend the money sent by her mother for lunch in entertainment places. For school, Nastya always took food containers, but her friends would make fun of her if she did this during walks. Nastya didn't expect Max to meet her on the bus. Guys like him usually drive around in expensive cars. "Sit down." Max gave her a seat, which he immediately bought. "Thank you." Nastya smiled, looking down. The guy was standing on her, holding the curtain very tight. She immediately liked him. Tall, cute, with a stylish haircut. But what does such a young man do in public transport? Nastya herself did not dare to speak. But when the place next to her was liberated, Max sat down on the next seat. "Are you not local?" he asked quietly. "Where are you from?" "Don't think. You don't look like a provincial," he immediately said. "You always turn around. It seems that such a crowd of people scares you." "You're right. I'm a student. I came to study. And you?" "And I've been living here for many years. I have a wealthy family. My parents live abroad, and I returned to my homeland. There's a lot of interesting things here. And now you too." Max liked her right away, and it was not about his state, but about communication. He was able to make her laugh, to get her to talk so much that she barely missed her stop. Max managed to get Nastya's number, although she didn't even hope for it. "Hey, we were going to talk. Take your phone away." Elena was grumbling. "One student. We wanted to break away in the end." "Yes, I know, sorry, but Max is so funny." Nastya could not contain a wide smile. "Look, you fell in love." Elena began to tease her, which attracted the attention of other dining visitors, where students went to eat inexpensively. If Nastya was not busy with her studies, she must have rewritten with Max. He seemed not very patient and very quickly invited her for the first date. She was not happy. Nastya lifted the whole floor in the dormitory so that the girls could share in decent clothes with her. Nastya waited for Maxim outside in a short dress from someone else's shoulder. He drove up to her in a beautiful white car, which she was scared to even sit on. "Are you hungry?" asked the guy instead of greeting. "I know a restaurant nearby. You should like it." "Great. Come on." Nastya agreed, worrying that she won't be able to pay for lunch in an expensive place. But her fears turned out to be useless. Max took all the costs on himself and surprised her with his. That Max will help her get rid of her clothes and move the chair when she sits down. And it felt like she was on a real date and realized that she liked the same thing. "It's very tasty here. Thank you for bringing me here. I would never have come to such a restaurant with my friends," said Nastya later. When they went out, the night was already falling and it smelled of frost. The city was preparing for the New Year holidays, decorating with various decorations. "I'm glad I spent this day with you. I wanted to call you on a date right away, but I was afraid to scare you." This time Max was embarrassed. "It can't be." The bell laughed at Nastya, feeling more free. "I even told my parents about you. They all wanted to find me a suitable girl there, at their place. But I said I could do it myself. By the way, I have foreigners, not Belmez in Russian." "Are you kidding?" Nastya didn't believe me. "That's weird. In fact, I'm an orphan. My parents adopted me from the States. I grew up there, and after school I wanted to move to my native country. At first they were against it, but I insisted on my own. I remembered Russian since childhood. I didn't want to lose my roots. I was born here after all." Anastasia and Max's novel was unexpectedly for both of them. It seemed that they understood each other in half a word, had similar interests and views on life. Nastya was surprised how they could be so similar when they grew up in different cultures and conditions. When she met her fiancé, Elena mocked her, who hoped that Max would have a good friend for her. "Shut up, or you'll be in trouble." Nastya waved at her. "He's not my fiancé yet," she clarified and smiled. Nastya was in love with her. She didn't believe in her happiness and was still afraid to tell her family. She didn't want Masha to decide that her younger sister was bragging about her success. Anastasia already lived with Max when he asked her an important question. "Dear, my parents want to meet you. How do you look at this?" Nastya was lying on her beloved shoulder, and he took advantage of the fact that she was in a vulnerable position. "Are you telling us a lot?" she asked quietly. "I can't hold back," Max confessed with a smile. "Don't be afraid of them. To be honest, at first they were against our relationship. They all hoped that I would go with an American or an English woman, but I chose you. They always respected my wishes, so they will accept me. Nastya immediately jumped on her feet. Is everything serious here? She asked worriedly, although she already knew the answer. Maxim often talked about weddings. He even showed her photos of models in various white dresses. Of course, I'm going to do that, the guy said. Nastya thought about it. She herself realized that their relationship quickly grew into a family one. The lovers could not live a day without each other. And Max was so impatient with her that it seemed as if that no other man would love her so much and carefully. There was nothing wrong in getting to know Max's parents, because everything was just about them getting married soon. Of course, I agree, and I have nothing against your parents. And then I will introduce you to my family. You were offended that I didn't tell them anything. Come here. Nastya whistled, because Max threw her on the bed. I love you. He whispered to her the very lips. On the day of meeting Max's parents, Nastya was extremely worried. She looked good. The lover tried to make the girl like his relatives. Mom even hugged Nastya before sitting at the table. I don't know what is customary to give you, said the girl with a smile, hoping that Max would translate her words to her parents. She stretched the highland of the rose bouquet and Robert a bottle of expensive wine. The girl did not give him her English skills at the advice of Elena. Do not get angry, better wait until the evening, said the one with a smart look when she learned about the upcoming event. Why? It will be easier for us to communicate in one language. Maxim will constantly translate everything. He is worried about it. What if they will water you with dirt? If you don't give up, you will be able to find out what they really think about you. Nastya decided that in something Elena could be right, and she behaved as if she didn't understand Max's cute mischief with her parents at dinner. Dad said you were younger than he expected. Although I told him that you were just going to the third year. If I look like that in my 40s, I don't mind. Anastasia smiled. She stopped worrying when everyone went to the dessert. Everything was going better than you could imagine. Such rich people accepted her, and they were not worried that she was born here in a simple family. Elena scared her for nothing. But Nastya didn't have time to think about it when her mother turned to Max. She doesn't know what we need her for, she asked in English with an unwavering, friendly smile. No, Mom, why? I'm not an idiot, said Max, looking at his beloved. Nastya clarified. What did she say? Mom says something very nice, and you hold on well. In response, Nastya only smiled, pretending that she didn't understand anything. Why did Max lie to her? And why do they need her? What kind of a strange family is this? The more the girl thought about it, the stronger the anxiety inside her. She decided to watch Max and understand what to do next. She didn't tell anything to Elena. Although she always had a friend on her side, she tried to support her. But she couldn't keep her tongue out of her teeth. A few days later, the whole university thought that the guy Nastya was preparing for an assassination attempt. A few weeks later, Anastasia, who was in a state of sudden anxiety, exhaled with relief. Her Max was still as cute and caring, as attentive and cheerful as ever. There were no signs of. What was he going to do to hurt her? Perhaps she was too nervous on the day of the meeting with Robert and Helena and didn't understand something. She had never practiced speaking English, and that evening she drank 3 glasses of wine. One day, when Max took her from the university after successfully passing the last exam, he suggested, let's go out into the wild. I looked around the lake's outskirts. It's spacious and cozy. Let's stay there for a couple of days and have a rest from the bustle. It's fabulously beautiful there. You like it? You suggest we rent a house? But it costs a lot of money. Nastya got angry right away. We can just go home. You'll meet your mom and Masha. You won't have to pay anything there. Nastya, the question is not about money. Max touched his beloved reindeers. I will be glad to meet your family. Very glad, but another time. And this trip was planned only for the 2 of us. Let's celebrate the successful release of the session. You were so exhausted this time. I was worried about you, by the way. And in general, lately you looked a little tense. And these weekends are for you. Forget about everything and spend time together without phones and the internet. You're right. I agree. Anastasia smiled. She didn't want to offend her beloved and insist on her own. Well, only if we can afford it. Not if we can do a lot, dear. Max bowed and kissed her. You will remember these days, believe me. It turned out. For 2 days of a short trip outside the city, Nastya had to pack a whole suitcase. She couldn't decide what to take with her to surprise Max, so she immediately put together several sets of clothes. Oh, what a beauty! The house is like in a fairy tale. Nastya was surprised to see their cottage from afar. It was made of light wood with dark panels and a huge glass wall on the second floor. From there, the view of the lake opened, over which in the morning a beautiful foggy haze spread. The brazier in the yard was next to several woven chairs and an oval table, over which the garlands of a pleasant golden color were twinkling. I hope you took the mosquito spray. Max hugged Nastya from behind when the rental agent could not catch them all. The Joker smiled and turned around in the arms of his lover. Thank you. You never stop surprising me. It's so wonderful here, and I'm glad I listened to you agreeing to the trip. I really needed it. No problem. Have fun. We can swim. The cook came in the morning and cooked our favorite dishes for us these days, so we don't have to worry about food. What a smart guy. He foresaw everything. Anastasia spent a wonderful day in the company of her lover, and she couldn't help but be happy to see them with Max. She often wondered what would happen if she had another girl in her place. Max would meet her, fall in love, meet his parents. It was strange to imagine someone else in her place. Nastya was sure that she would not pay attention to someone else who could be in Max's place on the bus. It was he who caught her. By dinner, she went down in a seductive burgundy dress with a cut on the side. You look amazing. Max ran over her with a glance and stretched a glass of red wine. Your favorite. Thank you. Nastya did not pay attention to the fact that she ate little, but Max poured more and more, and he barely touched his glass. Soon her eyes began to close. Nastya did not understand what was happening, why she wanted to sleep so abruptly. Maxim caught her head and carefully laid it on the table and called for his new success. She came to her senses after a few hours. Nastya didn't immediately understand where she was and why she felt so uncomfortable. Max was nearby. He was talking on the phone, but she couldn't understand his words. The hearing was not yet in tune. The words sounded somehow blurred. The wave of panic grabbed Nastya when she realized why she couldn't move. She was tied. Trying to get up, the album fell to the floor. It was definitely in some basement. There was cheese, and it smelled like mold. I told you, everything is ready. She is mine. The money is ready. Now Nastya really got scared for her life. Who is he talking to? Why is he doing this? Is it exactly Max or his evil twin brother? Do they really want to sell her to slavery or to the authorities? Thoughts changed each other so quickly that Nastya began to cry. Quietly, Max ordered her to be rude. He no longer reminded her of the nice guy she kissed today in the afternoon. Nothing will change if you fight. Let me go, it hurts. Through tears, the girl spoke, not believing that everything was happening for real. You love me? Don't you hurt me? I won't hurt you. The man softened and sat down in front of Nastya, removing her hair from her face. Your life will soon change for the better. Believe me, you will also thank me. The guy smiled, but Nastya did not believe it. What are you talking about? How can you help me? Untie me right now. Bear with it. You will see everything yourself. Here's the stubborn one. Max, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Nastya fell into hysterics, not knowing what her fiancé was preparing for her. What will happen to me? Where will you send me? Don't shout. It's all in vain. Calmly explained Max. Everything will be fine. He tried to hold himself in his arms. It was clear. The girl needs him unharmed. Therefore, he calmed her down and did not threaten and beat. Silence, he whispered, and squeezed his mouth with his hand. If you fart, I'll give you a shot and you'll get out again. Hearing the sound of the car coming up, Max carefully climbed up. Nastya could not see what he was doing there, but she did not waste time. She moved her limbs with a rush. She could sit on her knees and reach the knot on her legs. Nastya felt relief. Then she took her hands, seeing a nail sticking out of an old wooden door. The only window under the ceiling became a rescue. After being freed from the rope, She managed to slip out earlier than Max appeared in the basement again. Nastya heard him coming back, so she rushed forward, in the dark, hearing his screams behind her. "Stop, you bastard! Stop right there!" But Nastya didn't think to stop. The only thing that lighted her way was the moon, which allowed her to see the path into the forest. "Stop, it will get worse." Max yelled at the race, but Nastya didn't think of giving up. Fortunately, he put on her kids, in which she came for a rest. It is not known how long the chase lasted, but Anastasia did not pay attention to the lack of air during the race. She acted under the adrenaline. I see her only with one desire, to escape. Soon the path led her into the dead end. She decided to crawl through the bushes to escape the persecution. I hope that Maxim does not predict her actions. Soon the lights appeared among the trees. Running closer, Nastya realized that these were wooden windows. "Help me. Open the door." She knocked on the door, without having any idea who she was going to meet. "I'm begging you. Save me. They're chasing me." A tall young man in a sports suit appeared at the door. A huge, scary dog was standing next to him, howling at an uninvited guest. "Zeus, EW." The owner told him firmly. "What happened to you?" Anton turned to the swollen Nastya. "I was stolen, but I ran away." She jumped inside, not worrying about what was going into someone else's house. She just wanted to be an invisible person, to get into a corner and understand that she was safe now. Okay, tell me in order. What happened?" "My fiancé, through the blinds," explained to Nastya. "He took me here, and then he gave me something to drink. I fell asleep, then woke up tied up in some basement. And found your house. He ran after me. He was screaming at me. He said that soon I would have a new life. Look where he is. He can find me." A rustle of bushes was heard. Anton had not yet closed the door. "It's him. Don't let him in." Nastya was scared to let him in. Zeus ordered Anton and leaped towards the street. Zeus broke free of his place and jumped into the darkness. He scared the one who was close to the hut with his bark. No matter who hid in the bushes, he did not dare to jump into Anton's house. Nastya was sitting on the floor, shaking from the shock. She was empty in her head. Although not long ago, she was tormented by so many questions. And now she was exhausted by her worries. She could not find the strength to even talk. And the busy Anton did not dare to start him first. He did not know what misfortunes this stranger brought with him, but she definitely did not look like a dangerous person. "Sit down at the table. I'll brew tea with herbs. It will help calm down," said the man and put a small teapot on the old tile. And only then did Nastya come out of the stupor. She began to look around, noting that the lonely owner of the hut lived modestly. But who is he? Why would a person his age move into such a slum? "You need to treat your wounds." Anton sat down in front of Nastya with a first aid kit, soaked in a cotton pad with a dye. "You tore off all your skin. The branches have scratched you hard." Until that moment, Anastasia didn't even feel anything that her body was experiencing. When the adrenaline in the blood began to subside, she hissed at the pain, as if she were touching the scratches on a cotton pad. "I guess I look like a fool." Suddenly she laughed. "I imagine if someone like that would show up to me in the middle of the night. It's okay. The main thing is that you're safe. Who should I call to tell you about you? Where are your relatives?" "Oh my God!" Suddenly, Nastya burst into tears. Anton was not surprised by her mood change. He knew how people behave after shocking events. "Mom will faint. They didn't know anything about Max. I didn't tell them. Tonight you will spend the night here, and in the morning we will contact your relatives. I will not offend you. You can trust me. Zeus will guard you all night. He knows his business." Nastya didn't think that she would be able to sleep after all that she had to go through in one day. But as soon as the pillow touched her head, she immediately fell asleep. After breakfast, she called her mother. Tatiana couldn't believe what happened to her daughter, so she had to keep silent. "Why did she hide this bastard from us? He wouldn't dare to do such a thing to you if he knew your relatives. I wouldn't let him. I would have bitten him right away." The mother yelled at the taxi in which she went to pick up her younger daughter. Nastya heard a lot about herself. She understood. Mom was scared of her and couldn't calm down. She was ashamed of her relatives. But at the same time, she felt a huge relief. That now she can hear her voice, and not drive in someone's trunk in an unknown direction. With Mom, Nastya went to the local police station to find the basement where Max held his fiancée as soon as possible and took her blood for analysis. "I want to know that this animal is behind the bars," Tatiana asked the operator in a loud voice. "Tatiana Vladimirovna, I understand your indignation, but the investigation has just begun. We have a lot of work to do, and we will keep you informed," answered Nikolai Ivanovich. "And if he returns for my daughter, what are you going to do to protect her?" "This is unlikely. After such a failure, the suspect will most likely lie at the bottom because he understands that he will be searched for. And he would be a big idiot if he decided to repeat his attempts so soon. You know, it does not calm down. I stood on my Tatiana. I'll watch Nastya at home. But I want you to protect her. I promise you, Tatiana Nikolaevna, the car with our employees will be on duty near your house." Anastasia should have been on the threshold of her own hut as Masha was in tears. "Never do that again, and don't hide anything from us. You would know how scared we were for you. We didn't find a place for ourselves. Why didn't you tell us anything about your fiancé? We would have known better. We could have noticed something to protect you." Maria was holding her sister back. "I know why you did that. I was sorry. I didn't want to boast about my relationships. But it's my fault and my failures. I don't want to meet anyone. But that doesn't mean you should do the same. I will be very happy for you when a worthy guy will appear next to you. I love you, sister, and I wouldn't have survived if anything had happened to you." Nastya didn't find anything to answer. She hadn't heard such words from Masha for a long time. "She lived like a locket for several years and didn't want to contact me. I love you. I won't do that again, and I'll share everything with you. I promise." That day, the sisters were hugged, shared with the personal who had been hiding for so long. They were not so friendly since childhood, and now they wanted to make up everything. The news of the kidnapping of Nastya spread not only throughout the village, but also the city in which she studied. Investigative authorities took a tight grip on this case, and soon, Max was arrested along with Helena and Robert. While searching for their rented apartment, other victims of their actions were also found. The family of foreigners gave themselves up for hunters behind their heads, searching for their missing relatives for rich clients. Ms. Helena says that a certain businessman Ryabinetsov, who lives in the States, lost contact with his little daughter many years ago. He was born in Russia and left the country in the early years, when the danger was not only his business, but also his family's. The translator explained, with the help of whom the fraudsters communicated with the police. Mrs. Helena's family has done similar things many times. They were volunteers and searchers and promised to find Faith for a lot of money. Only in fact, they had no relationship with the search for real relatives. Anastasia just turned out to be like Vera. That's why Max decided to meet her. Together with her parents, he was going to introduce her to Ryabintsev instead of his own daughter. So he got involved in trust. Nastya wouldn't have helped us if she knew what we were doing. Max gave the testimony. "I had to give her one medicine that causes short-term memory loss. If only she and Ryabintsev could understand the truth, we would have escaped with his money." "So you were going to give a completely different girl for Ryabintsev's daughter?" the investigator clarified. "This was the plan?" Max nodded, realizing that pure heart recognition would make his life easier. Because he had already helped the foster parents to get a couple of such cases. After that, they hid in another area or even changed the place of residence to another country where they could calmly learn English. "You can't tell the judge about my mental health. I'm a victim too." Max decided to use all possible means to save himself time. "I was an orphan. I had a hard childhood, and then I got into these fraudsters. They taught me to cheat from childhood. They ruined everything good for me and taught me to only use people. Do not break the comedy in front of me. Everything will be solved by psychological examination, which will be considered by the judge. I do not solve anything in this matter." The investigator cut off. The closer the court came, the more she was worried. She understood that she had barely left the country because of the work of the fraud group. If all this had happened, she would have had to somehow explain to the rich and influential Ryabintsev, and he would have been disappointed again that he did not find his daughter. "You are torturing yourself for nothing." Masha's sister was reassured. "You are not guilty of anything. Stay here. The criminals are caught." It will all end soon. I can't throw it out of my head how much I could stick to Max. He just used me. Lit. Not a single second of our relationship, he was not sincere with me. Well, how can I believe people now? You're right. He's a scoundrel, but not everyone is. Is that what you're telling me? Answered Nastya in an attack. You were abandoned by your fiancé, and you were sitting locked in your room. Like a fairy princess. And I've been very much attracted to this. You can't expect some kind of adventure from life when you yourself don't let them happen. Without your participation, nothing will happen. Time will pass, and you will trust a good person again. You will learn to distinguish the dangerous from the reliable. The whole court meeting, the family of Nastya sat like on needles, but justice was rebelling. Maxim was unable to get a diagnosis of mental disability and got a real prison sentence. Robert and Helena were transferred to the U.S. authorities and had to pay the same sentence there. Nastya was so involved in her own experiences that she completely forgot about Anton. He was also in the courtroom as a witness to the charges. Now the man looked different. He shaved, cut himself, and put on a classic suit, although the clothes of the Jaeger were to his face. Anton, wait. Anastasia called him the hall of the building. I'm sorry I didn't let you know. You owe me a lot. Saved me. I don't know how to thank you. I didn't do anything special. Everyone would do the same. Is this your family? Anton waved at Tatiana and Maria. Yes, mom and sister. They are now following me everywhere. They are worried that I will not get acquainted with a dangerous man again. This is definitely not about me. Anton smiled. Well, I have to go. Zeus needs to walk for a few hours. He is such a breed. Here's my number. Come to the family somehow. Let's talk, let's walk. After the first visit to Anton with his mother and sister, Nastya realized that she had not spent much time together. After her kidnapping, she could not find peace anywhere. People constantly stopped her, asking if she had survived the attack. In the village, things were even worse. Curious neighbors did not let her pass. Anastasia felt much calmer. He lived in a hut himself, so no one from the village came to him. So she found a shelter for herself. With a smile, he met Anton, opening the front door. Come in, don't be shy. Zeus and I are walking around the forest. Maybe with us? With pleasure, answered Nastya and left the road bag at home. They walked slower than the dog that dived under every bush, scaring the gray hares and birds with his presence. Anton was talking about the trees, the animals that inhabited the forest. They were going deeper and deeper from where there were no houses or sun rays visible. Last time I offended your mother, began Anton. Ask her for forgiveness for me. She tried to find out why I live here alone, although I'm only. People often ask me about it, but I'm not ready to answer. You can tell me if you want. Nastya carefully suggested, not wanting to seem like a curious whore. I will not pressure you, but the fact that you are alone here, you may be lonely. I ran away from people myself. It's been 4 years since my relatives died. My wife and daughter were in an accident. There was a fog. The taxi driver couldn't handle the wet road. I'm sorry. Oh, but Nastya took Anton by the hand. I'm sorry, I wouldn't have gotten into the trouble if I knew. You have nothing to do with it. On the contrary, I'm interested in you. People with sympathy in their eyes surrounded me in the city. They tried to help me asking about my condition, but I was fed up with it. I could not survive my grief because everyone who knew me saw only that accident in me. They stopped talking to me about the weather, about work, about vacation plans. Accidental acquaintances took me to the eye, to not get sick and not communicate with the widow. They were embarrassed. It was easier to avoid me. Then I decided to change my life. I have an apartment in the city, but I did not sell it. I hoped that someday I would survive. The forest helps me, and Zeus too. Here I found peace, met new people. They don't touch me, and I'm them. Loneliness helps to make up for the loss. I'm glad you're doing well. Life is so unpredictable. You never know what you are preparing for. Nastya noticed that Anton had not yet removed his hand from her palm. She was calm with him. There was no sense of threat. It seemed that he was feeling better in her presence. She decided to distract Anton, to translate the conversation into another topic. Nastya understood that while he was ready to tell her only this, it was not worth demanding more from him. The walk in the fresh air quickly tired her. She herself did not notice how she fell asleep after lunch. "Wake up, Sonia." Woke her up with a light touch. "Today we will fry fish for dinner on the fire. Do you have vegetables? I will prepare a salad." "Great." "You'll find everything in the fridge and fresh greens on the bedside table." Time flew unnoticed in Anton's company. Nastya befriended Zeus, who was in her command, although before that no outsider allowed her to control herself. "Oh, you're a scoundrel," laughed Anton when Nastya fed the dog for every snack. "Do you want to be praised?" Nastya and Anton stayed in the yard in front of the fire. The comfortable folding chairs allowed them to spend a few hours behind the scenes. "You know what's interesting?" Nastya started. "That girl, Vera, the missing daughter of a businessman, looks very much like me. I still have a photo from the investigation. I'll bring it now." Nastya returned by phone, where her children's photos and photos of Vera were. The girls had the same hair color, eyes, a similar smile, and a face. "This is Vera. Are you sure?" Mr. Anton got up. "Yes, what is it? Do you know her?" "This is Yulia Sviridova. We were in the orphanage together. She is 2 years younger than me, and I haven't seen her since the release." "Are you sure? She couldn't have been in the orphanage." "And what? Who do you know about him?" "If Julia is Ryabintsev's daughter, we will help him to reunite." Anton's idea got burned. Nastya laughed, seeing how enthusiastic he was. "I see you like this for the first time. Your eyes are shining. I want to do a good thing, but what's wrong?" Anton got drunk right away. "It's okay. I share your desire. Let's try to figure it out." Anastasia suggested that Anton might be right. They can help their father and daughter. They can influence their fate. One thought about it made her scared and inspired at the same time. The investigator found out from Max's family that Vera was 7 when Ryabinets ran to the States. Her mother died in the wild. Her nanny Valentina brought her up. For several months, Valentina kept in touch with Ryabintsev, but then did not announce. And no one knew where the faith was. It was impossible for competitors to recognize it, and he did not see his daughter anymore. It's a pity that we can't contact Ryabintsev himself. He was interrogated by the police in the United States, and he was caught by Helena and Robert. He shared his thoughts with Anton. If we contacted him, we would have received more information about the faith. It's better to find your Yulia first. He's disappointed now. He was deceived by the fraudsters. Do you think he will believe us? What would he share personal information with? You're right. Anton agreed. Let's find Yulia first on social networks. Now everyone will sit somewhere. Let's visit her. Find out what she remembers about herself and her early childhood. We can still go to the orphanage. What if they remember how Julia appeared in them? Finding Julia's account on the internet was not a task for Anton. He easily found a place in the virtual world and even texted her. I didn't tell her why I found it. Let's talk when we meet. Texting is not a very serious matter, Nastya said, showing a photo of adult Julia. We really have something in common in appearance. She's leaving in 5 hours. Ready for tomorrow's trip? And you? Can you leave? Don't worry about me. I'll find time for that. Yulia was very surprised to see Anastasia next to Anton, which reminded her of herself. What's this? Some kind of prank? Borisov, what are you thinking? She gazed at Anton with a look. Believe me, we're not lying. We want to get to the truth. Nastya came to help him. No one is mocking you, but maybe you can find your father. Julia's expression changed immediately. She should have looked at Vera's photo and the signature on the turn. This is my name. I was called Vera. Well, then we need to decide through the police. Anton decided. We are powerless, and I have a connection with Ryabintsev. A week had passed when Anton called Nastya with good news. They met, he said without greeting. Yulia, or rather Vera, and Sergei Viktorovich. She just called me. Thank you. She said that they immediately did a DNA test. She is beyond herself. I am also very happy for them. Nastya sincerely said. They were lucky that we met. Anton heard Nastya's silence. Apparently, his words caught her. She didn't want to give them any special meaning, but they sounded like that. I'm in the city now, in an old apartment. I put it up for sale to start with a clean sheet. You don't want to help me instead of a realtor? Of course, I'm free until the study has started. Nastya agreed. and was looking forward to meeting Anton. His state of mind was changing, and he was getting more and more hopeful. She had not yet recovered from the betrayal of Max, but she was thirsty for Anton's attention. The next few weeks they spent together, looking at various housing options. Together they discussed how to set up a certain apartment where a dinner table would be better and where a TV. "You have a great taste development," said Nastya Anton, when they left another object. "You feel the space well, you know how to decorate it. I'm going to design," but so far only the viewer was confused. "I look at the interiors of other people's houses. I dream of how I will do everything in my own home, if it ever appears in my house. Nastya, but I'm not looking for this apartment just for myself." "What are you talking about?" Her heart was pounding harder. "I don't just want to start a new life, but to start it with you." Anton looked her straight in the eye. She understood that he was not joking. "I was waiting for a more suitable chance to confess. The entrance is also a romantic place." Nastya smiled, and Anton realized that she was separating his feelings. He grabbed her face with his palms and gently kissed her. Nastya answered the same, hugging her neck. "I don't want to rush you. You don't trust anyone now." Anastasia made him shut up with a kiss. "I'm ready, and I want this." Following Maria's advice, Nastya did not hide her relationship with Anton from her relatives and invited him for dinner at his home. He immediately liked it, so there was no doubt about his distrust. On that very pleasant day, Tatiana's house was knocked. "Mom, there's some kind of SUV there," Masha whispered, afraid to give them away in the house. "I'll open it." Anton opened the door and immediately smiled. In front of him was Vera Ryabintseva with her father. "I told my dad that we would find you here. Come on in quickly." Nastya remembered and went to get 2 plates and tools. "I apologize for interrupting your feast." Anastasia. "Anton, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for what my daughter was looking for and allowed us to meet Vera. We honestly did not believe that the idea would succeed," answered Anton, but could not stop halfway. "Thank you." Vera stepped forward and hugged them tightly, pressing them to herself. "My life has changed. I didn't have a single family member before. You know what it's like, Anton." "I know, and I'm glad you're together now. And we're glad for you. It's not in vain that we all gathered today." Anton went into his pocket and took out the velvet box. Tatiana gasped, clinging to Masha's hand. Anton said, "Nastya, my darling, I want to live my whole life only with you. I want to live and rejoice again thanks to you. Please become my wife." Nastya nodded, unable to say a word from the emotions that had been flowing. But they did not get lost and supported him. Nastya and Anton had to kiss in front of everyone, not ashamed of their happiness. "We came in well," laughed Sergei Viktorovich. "The first toast is for me." As a thank you for reuniting with his daughter, Sergei Viktorovich paid for Masha's surgery, so that she would recover and be able to dance at her sister's wedding. And for the celebration, they gave a 2-story house in the very center of the city for a young family. This was too surprising for Nastya not to be able to accept such a gift. "You have done much more for us," said Sergei. "We will not have time for the wedding, you understand, so good luck and respect to each other. Thank you for everything. Take care of Vera," said Anton on the way, hugging his old friend. She hit herself so hard that she would never be happy again, that the act of Sergei Viktorovich struck her. "I can walk myself," said Maria in the whole room when Nastya and her fiancé came to visit her. "Let me get my recovery, and then you can celebrate. I will dance with everyone. I have no doubt about that." Nastya smiled, hugging her happy sister. She hadn't seen Masha so smiling for a long time. At the wedding, the couple invited only their closest ones. There were no one who would look at Anton with sad eyes. Only those who were sincerely happy for their happiness. That day, the young wives were raising toasts, shouting bitterly, dancing until they fell. The honeymoon of the young spouses was held in the usual forest area, renting a house with a pool. On the wall, Anton's loud voice made him panic and blink. He remembered that anything could happen in the forest with her. "Dear, wake up quickly." "Well, wake up." "What? Who? Why are you screaming?" Anton stretched out in bed. "I'm pregnant." "Oh my God, look, there are 2 stripes here." Nastya was screaming, holding a positive test in her hands. "We will have a child." "Are you sure?" Wow. He exhaled. I was afraid to tie you up again to kidnap. Anton got up from the bed and hugged his ragged wife. If you like the story, please support me with the button on the top. For you, just one click, but for me, it is very important. Thank you in advance.